Welcome back to Off the Tap. This week is episode 47, and we're getting into Lucky 19 Brewing Company's Bearkat Blonde. Let's do
Also
this.
realized, also realized we're creeping up on that 50 mark. Huh? That'll be a landmark.
Yeah, we are. 52 was my big landmark when we first started this thing, so
To
I'm
have
excited
one
to
per
get there.
week.
Yeah, to have a year's worth week-wise of episodes. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Solid. Oh yeah, back to Lucky 19.
Yeah, yeah. So Lucky 19 is a brewing company based out of Huntsville, Texas. And it was founded by a couple of Sam Houston alum. I don't know how to say it honestly, and I'm one of them. So, well, I'm not one of the ones that founded it, but I'm a Sam Houston alum or
I was
alumni,
gonna,
however you
I
say
was gonna
it.
say, is there something I don't know about? You should have plugged this a lot sooner if that were the case. But you
Yeah,
mean
I was just waiting
alum?
for it to get up off the ground.
I hear you. Yeah, this one's super close to home. Like I know we've done some stuff out of Southern Star, which Conroe's just as close to home as Huntsville, but Huntsville feels closer to home. For some reason, I don't know if you feel that way, but it feels closer to the dub, and this one feels like the closest brew. This feels like a home brew, straight up.
Yeah, I think it's because it's like like the other stuff we've done that's based out of Conroe is kind of known, and this is
Yeah.
more of like a very small. Well, actually, I don't know how big they are. I assume they got some stuff going in Huntsville, but as far as like production wise, they're not sending a lot of stuff out. It's the first time I've ever seen them anywhere, so
Well,
pretty
the
excited
other
though.
thing, me too. The other stuff that I've realized is like I've had Southern Star outside of Conroe. I've had Southern Star other places, but I've never even heard of Lucky 19.
Yeah, I don't know how new they are. I didn't do much research. I'm a horrible podcast host. I should have done some research about that.
Well,
But
it's very easy to start out getting into branding. I guess let's crack them first.
yeah, I'm gonna get into the taste here myself, but here in a second. But Bearkat Blonde obviously is a tribute to Sam Houston Bearcats, and the branding on it is pretty much what you would expect if you look up the Sam Houston logo. That's what you'll see on the can for the most part. But I don't know what Lucky 19 is really referring to. I don't know.
Okay, so I have a theory on this. I can't confirm, but the it's kind of funny because Sam Houston. So by the way, really cool can, and then also all of the lettering on the back. I mean, they're repping straight up Sam Houston and all that jazz. Um, they have one of the few. So they have a very robust criminal justice system for which we'll get into in a minute. But
Yeah.
they have one of the only, I believe, in the state of Texas, maybe even the South, one of the only golf course management program. So it's like building the business of golf courses. So they have the huge driving range out there. They also have they have a full course, I believe, too, but it's basically built around like engineering a golf course, promoting a golf course, building the golf course brand, and making them profitable. And of course, there's 18 holes in golf. So I'm assuming Lucky 19 is like where you go after the course, and that's their play.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that would make
I
sense.
I think it is. I mean, again, this is me making assumptions, but it made the most sense when like I literally didn't look at the can until you told me what beer we were doing, and so that's what I think it is. But there's no insight online to that.
Isn't that golf course out there called Raven's Nest or something like that?
Possibly or something Ravens, but yeah, it's right off of 45, like when you're headed southbound on the feeder side past all the new development stuff out there. That's where the driving range is. I don't know exactly where the course is.
Yeah, I've never been out there and played it, but I do have a buddy that's enrolled in that golf course management stuff at Sam. So that was the first time I'd heard of it, but that's pretty cool.
So this is awesome. So I know that you're going to get into the stats on the beer. I'm not going to jump in on that, but it's crafted by alumni just 2.5 miles from the Sam Houston campus. Bearkat Blonde is a salute to beer and to the cats, spelled with a K. We'll talk about that later, maybe. Um, and next time I'll be a tall boy. That's the call out on the can.
Really?
Yeah. Also, it's funny. It
Hmm.
says a beer in the hand is worth two in the bush. That's pretty solid.
Hey, I like that. I like that. Yeah, so this is a obviously a blonde. It's a blonde ale coming in at 5% ABV and 15 IBUs. So not bitter at all. And tasting it, It's definitely not bitter.
No, it's super drinkable.
Yeah.
I'm not overwhelmed by any of it. Um, I don't know if maybe it's because it's a can has a little bit of a aluminy hint to it. That might be just me personally, but
No, and I mean I'm drinking mine out of it, but I can see what you're tasting.
it's a little bit of a I mean, it's definitely a craft blonde. Like I think it has the right amount of craftiness, but it's also very drinkable.
Yeah. It's very smooth on on the entry and in the mouthfeel. It's very very smooth. So that's pretty good. They got that going. And they have a lot of beers, by the way. I saw like I say a lot, but like 4 or 5 I think I saw on their website, and I saw 3 of them at the store, I believe. But this one stood out to me because of the name. So
So they've got uh local here, yeah, so they've got, I mean, they kind of run the gambit, right? They've got a porter, they've got the Bearcat Blonde, they've got an IPA. Excuse me. Ooh, here come the burps. They've got a
yeah, they hit
pale
quick.
ale and they've got a Kolsch. I don't, obviously they have some seasonal stuff. They got a Hefeweizen that's called Hocus Pocus, a winter a pale ale, a chocolate milk stout, and a IPA called Madre.
Oh wow, so they got quite a few
Um,
things.
yeah.
Chocolate milk stout, man. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about
Everybody's
this
different though.
multiple times. Yeah, we've talked about this multiple times. Like, you're not going to kill it with all of them, but huge. Again, not jumping into branding. I know that this one's tied to the Bearcats and it's tied to Sam Houston, which is awesome. Um, but their branding is super simple, super clean. They seem to honor a lot of local heroes, um, and specific, like Texas Highway 19 is the IPA that's up there. Um,
That's
so,
cool.
anyways, super simple, but they get their point across with all of the different variations, I think.
Now I wonder if you can go to a Sam Houston baseball game or a basketball game or a football game or whatever and order one of these. Because if you can't, I think the college is missing out, quite honestly.
I would almost venture to say, like, if they're branding, if Sam Houston is allowing them to use their official label,
Yeah, I would think so.
I imagine. I mean, they're probably not slinging them as like the primary provider because there's going to be some generic Miller
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
It's
Anheuser product.
it's a craft option at the
Yeah.
and I mean market wise that has to make a lot of sense because typically the college population is really into craft
A-
stuff.
And and it's not like, if it was like a super stout IPA or something, I could see how nobody,
Mhm.
but like I could see the average dad coming in to watch his son at a ball game or like graduation or something, like not being so like resistant to change to not drink this, versus his Bud Light or Bush or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And going on the point that you said it's very drinkable, it would be a very drinkable game beer for like a day baseball game.
hmm
You know what I
It's
mean?
it's a
In the heat, it's just hot outside and this is crisp and smooth and refreshing.
it's almost like the most flavor that I've had in something that doesn't seem overwhelming. Like I'm not going to compare it to any of like the other stuff that's at local, you guys can fill in the gaps, local baseball games around here.
Yeah.
But those are heavier and aren't something that I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to drink these all throughout the game. I'm going to mix it up." This is something where like I'm getting all the flavor but none of the like fallback of a heavier flavorful beer. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I agree 100% with that as well.
Also, I thought about another thing that makes it feel so close to home. It's because like Sam for us, at least for where we grew up, is kind of like the 13th grade,
It
right?
really is cuz it's like man there was a saying in some movie or something that's very similar to this, but it's like Sam Houston is where everybody in Willis goes, or everybody from the area goes.
Yeah,
That you graduate high school and it's like, well, everybody knows where you're going. You're going to Sam Houston. So
exactly.
I see y'all next year.
And
That's how
and
it goes.
you might venture out from there, but like you're gonna start there for sure. It's like it blows my mind that like when you go to see your counselor as like a senior at in Willis, they're not like, hey, we have the counselors from Sam on site, just go ahead and fill out your paperwork, like
Yeah, yeah. We have the whole administration here. Just go ahead and
yeah.
sign up. Get in. But I mean, even if you don't go to college at Sam, you're still gonna see everybody at Sam the
Oh
next year.
yeah.
Because when you come back to town, you don't come back and stay at your parents' house the whole time while you're back in town because you're going to Sam to meet your buddies. That's what's going on.
Exactly. Obviously, the nightlife's a lot better there. The town is super super cool. Um,
It's a
one
cool
other
little
thing,
town, man, with
yeah,
a
the
lot of
other thing
modern
that
amenities.
what are you, a real estate agent there or something? You trying to
No,
sell real estate there?
I'm just saying it's not like I'm not saying it's anything special. I'm just saying it's like a cool little old town with some nice they got some nice fast food there now that I've seen. Like they have a Freddy's out there, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the stuff that they've built, like even across from campus, or like I'm going to say the other part of town from campus, like off of 45 and stuff is solid. But you're right, it has like a small town feel, but there's a lot of like cool non-standard college town things to do. But there's also the college town feel, but it's not like this massive city that they've plugged the college into. They've kind of remained relatively untouched, even though they're like building up things around it.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with the landscape.
Oh yeah. For case in point, for those that haven't been to Huntsville that are listening, or those that have never experienced Huntsville, I'm sure that you've seen a movie that was very popular at one point called Dazed and Confused. So that movie itself was written, filmed, and based on Huntsville High School in the 70s. So all of the characters
I didn't know
there,
that.
yeah, all of what was happening, what was going on in life, the popularity of Aerosmith in Houston, all of that is based around Huntsville High School. I think it was like class of, I don't know, I have to go back and Google it, but it was like 73 or 76 or something like that.
All right,
So,
all right, all right.
all right, all right, all right. So if you are familiar with that movie, then you're familiar with, I would say, even up to this point, I know that was the 70s and times were different, but like the mindset and feel of most of the students that are at the university or that are still in the city, right?
Yeah. In fact, if you're not familiar with that movie, I recommend watching it, and it's on Amazon Prime right now. I saw it last night. So if you have Prime, you can watch it there. Plugging
Matthew
it.
McConaughey's breakout, and he's a Texas boy, so he probably didn't have to
Yeah.
create that character all that much, but yeah. So I thought about that as soon as I started looking at the cans. I was like, oh crap! Like if no one has understood the feeling or the motif that we're trying to expel about Huntsville, it's Dazed and Confused.
Yeah. I think another point about it being like a really small town, because it is a college town, right? During the semester. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We talked a little bit about how, like, the population would probably like this because it's craft, and that's usually what college kids like to get into and try. But it is a college town, so there is probably seasonality uh, to it, right? Like I'm sure they're not getting as much business during the summer or
yeah.
Christmas break because really, who lives there outside of college students?
Which brings us to a very interesting point. Okay,
Yeah,
what makes Huntsville outside of the college atmosphere and the small hometown feel is that I would stake claim to 95 to 98% of their population being fairly transient. One, because of the university, and then one thing that we failed to mention even this far into the episode is the I think one of the largest prison systems in the state of Texas.
yeah,
So you know, either you're there for a limited period of time because you're going to school and seasonally there's some shift, or you're just there on somebody else's dime and they're shipping you through, or well, actually, let's be honest, there's a lot of the population that's in that prison system that's going to be there till the end of their days,
yeah, for a
because
long
of the
time.
whole, well, at least until it's all the way over. They're not moving anywhere else. Let's put it that way, right? Because of the
Right,
way
right.
that the system works.
Now, I
Um,
I remember when I was a kid, it was like a rumor I heard or something, but wasn't the guy that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based off of? Wasn't he there
I don't think
for a
so
for a short time or something?
because Ed Gain is who that's based off of. We might have talked about this on another episode, but
Is it Ed
Ed
Gain or
Gein,
Ed
Ed
Gein?
Gein, Gain. I don't know. Um, but Ed Gein is who it was based off of. But I've never actually Googled to see if where he was housed at. But there might have been like other copycat. I know there were some pretty heavy hitters that were housed there, and it is old Sparky's there, the original uh, end of days equipment, right prior
Mm-hmm.
to lethal injection. Um, so
Pretty wild.
yeah, they've held a lot of pretty gruesome folks there for the end of days, till their end of days. Um, Also, I think it's funny too because you have like Walls, which is the notorious like death row campus, right? People go in and they don't ever come out kind of situation. Also,
Mm-hmm.
the city like celebrates these as they're happening, by the way. Like how people go to watch Friday Night Lights? Yeah, they're
The
gonna go
death
watch
row
this.
things.
Yeah, obviously there's no
Yeah.
more lights now that they're not using an electric chair. But but yeah, so they still go and like watch that. A lot of folks do. Obviously the families that were impacted and stuff. But that being said, Walls is only like I think like 3 miles from like Sam Houston dormitories. So I don't know what civil engineer thought like that's the best way to lay the city out, but yeah, they're making it happen over there.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to turn anybody off from it, but I don't know of any stories of a prisoner breaking out and wreaking havoc on the campus.
Not so
They
not
usually run if I'm being honest, they probably run the other way because all the cops would be like, "Hey, they're probably going to campus." You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's been a while. It doesn't happen all that often, but there was the one a couple of years ago, if you remember that. But he like went north or went, okay, so here's the other thing too. It's like university, prison, surrounded by huge East Texas Piney Woods National Forest. So there's not a lot of stuff around it.
Right.
So I think the last one that I remember, he like broke out, stole a van or a bus or something. I think he did unfortunately end up killing some folks along the way, which is terrible. But
Well,
he went south. He didn't go towards university.
hmm. Okay. So he went this way instead of that way.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
either way, I know I've heard of a few prison breaks which they're like you said, they're just transient, man. They're just trying to get out. They're just, you know,
yeah, so
you're there for one purpose. Well, you're there for one of two purposes. Either to get your education or prison. So,
or I would say, there are a lot of folks that go there to work for that system. A lot of them get educated at SAM for criminal justice or some variation of it. And then
it's
they
true.
go into, which is awesome. It's a plug for the
Oh,
prison. And then from there, they go to other areas of the state. So even that population, I would say, is transient.
yeah, and I think you said already that it's like one of the top rated criminal justice systems, which
Yes.
is really awesome.
And one other thing I'll say too, like you bump into, obviously in the state of Texas, you bump into a lot of Aggies, Longhorns, Raiders. Like you bump into a lot of them from the Bears, right out of Baylor. A lot of folks from these big schools, but I bump into a lot of folks that went to Sam that absolutely love Sam and absolutely love Huntsville. Like the passion for the school and for the city is equivalent to that of Austin or College Station or Waco. So even though it's like a smaller school in the grand scheme of like publicity, um, everybody's in love with it and it's their home even after they graduate from there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I went, I didn't spend really any time on campus. I did my entire thing online, but I will say that everybody, like staff wise and professor wise, that I dealt with there. Now, not all of the peers. Some of the peers were a little bit difficult, but all the staff and professors were incredible. And I could imagine had I been on campus, it would have been an even better experience. Um, the only reason I really didn't go is because it's really uh, it's not a super accessible
Mm-mm.
college because it's so hilly. So many ups and downs all over the place.
And old, like parts of it are very old, and like just back then, the way they laid things out was not
Yeah.
conducive.
Yeah. Not very
Um,
wheelchair friendly, for sure.
but I but it's a cool camp. I never physically went. I mean, I think I might have taken some classes there during a summer, right? Had to put my time in coming out of the old dub. But
Right, right.
but I don't think that like I ever like went where it was like fully populated for a semester. I went there a lot because there were buddies there to the point you made earlier, but
Right.
I didn't full time it, I don't think, consistent. But yeah, there's a good chance that most of the folks that are enjoying this beer are only going to enjoy it for a 4 year stay. There's folks that are going to live there for 40 years that are never going to get to enjoy it on the other side of that coin, if you
Yeah.
catch the
Are
drift.
they never going to get to? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see
Yeah.
what you mean. I am curious about the rest of probably the 10% of the population that lives there year round that aren't
Old,
students or
old money
or
or old
prisoners.
land. Yeah, if you're not a student and you're not a prisoner or you're not working at the prison system, right? Because there's that saying too. You either work for it or you're in it. Um, I think it's a lot of old established money. A lot of big landowners. There was farming out there at one point. So yeah, I think it's just like people that probably were natives and then everything else happened around them. Like their families were probably there before the bid for the prison system and before the teachers college, as Sam was originally known, before it was established, which was a hot minute ago, but old money seems to stay in the same place.
Do you know which came first? Did the college come first or did the prison system come first?
That's a good question. I would assume the college, only
I would think so.
because yeah, because it's been around for a hot minute. That's something I can work on Googling.
Yeah, because I mean, it would be interesting either way, honestly, because you know, I either thought process could be funny because it's like if the school was there first and then they were like, oh, hey, let's build a prison 3 miles from the college, right? But even if it was the other way around and it was, well, the prison's here, let's build a college 3 miles from the prison. You know
So,
what I mean? Like either way.
so the college was founded in 1879. It's the third oldest public college or university in Texas. It's one of the first normal schools west of the Mississippi River and the first in Texas.
Eat 'em
I don't
up,
know what
baby.
I don't know.
Eat 'em up,
I
cats.
don't, and I'm gonna just yeah, obviously you're gonna have to watch the YouTube and to get the visuals on this awesome Bearcat paw.
Yeah.
Um, but all right, so now let's do Huntsville State Prison.
Well, the visuals brings me to a good point. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, you can actually watch on Spotify as well.
Ooh,
Yeah, you can watch on Spotify or on YouTube, whichever you prefer.
ooh, okay, wow, I was wrong. So the state penitentiary at Huntsville, or the Huntsville unit, nicknamed the Walls Unit, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, Infinite Walls. It was founded in 1849. So 30 years before the university was. Also crazy, it only holds 1,705 people.
Currently, or is that what it was when they built it?
I think currently now there's a number of prisons there. That's the Walls unit, so that's like the
The death row people.
the last ones you're
For
going to
them.
see kind of unit. But there's a women's prison that's out there. There's obviously the lower, what do they call it? The lower security units. So there's, it's almost like a bit. I would say the prison system's very similar to that of baseball. Like you got the guys that are in the pros. That's the Walls unit,
I don't
and
know if we
then you
should.
got,
I don't know if we should make that analogy.
and then you.
That
I
that
mean,
comparison.
but for the layman to understand,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, if you're playing, major league ball, you're in the Walls unit, okay?
Okay.
But then there's a bunch of like double A, I don't know, maybe you're in for 6, 7, 10 years, something like that. You'll be in the lower security. That's the one where they let you out to like work the fields and like pick up the trash and shit like that. They're not letting the dudes in Walls do that,
They're
like
taking
at
you on like
best.
field trips and stuff, basically.
Yeah, that's like the minor leagues, if you will. If you're playing
Yeah.
major league prison ball, then you're basically getting to read books by candlelight, the way I understand it. So
Well,
at
good.
least in Huntsville. But um They've also got the they got the museum up there too, and it's been a long time since I've gone, but it walks through the history of at least the Texas prison system and
Okay.
all the variations and stuff. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. I think the only museum I've been to in Huntsville was like the state park, uh, that had like
Like,
all of the old homes that like Sam Houston himself built, or whatever. That's
and
the
then there's
only stuff I've seen out there.
I don't know if I've ever been to that one. I mean, obviously I've been to the statue, right?
Yeah.
And just a note to anyone who's going to go there and visit the statue. I know you want to stop on 45, but like you have
There's
direct access behind him.
yeah, there's an
So,
exit and a road that goes right up to the back.
and you're going to sneak a peek of, the prison system too. So, listen,
It's a
it's just
win-win.
yeah.
It's a fun
Um
little stop.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's a great meld of people, right? You've got those that are studying people that possibly and tracking people that possibly one day will end up in the system, but you also have the system itself, right?
yeah,
So we're educating a whole generation of people that are going to determine and help enforce who goes into this system that happens to be located right next door.
right. Like, kind of, it could be people, people that go to Sam for criminal justice and stuff could wind up being in the FBI, man.
They could, which
Doing profiling and stuff. You know what I mean?
which is a great topic to kind of spin into because you know we've all I think by this point most people have seen Mindhunter. I'm sure. Let's hope. If
Mm,
not, right? We're not
yeah.
giving you a list of research to do because Lucky 19 demands it.
Or
Okay.
or just stuff to watch. We're not trying to
Yeah.
do that.
I feel like a lot. I feel like a lot of other podcasts are like, this was built off of reading these 15 books, and this is a summary. Like, we're not pushing you there. Basically, at this point, you just need to watch Mindhunter for the comment I'm going to make next, and you need to watch Dazed and Confused so that you understand H Town, and I
Yeah.
mean
Well,
the H Town, the Hville.
H Vegas, as
Yeah,
people
H
call
Vegas,
it.
baby. Hunts Vegas. Okay. Um. So yeah, so obviously the FBI has back in the 60s, I think it was 60s 70s, everybody watched Mindhunter, but like they developed this criteria um for profiling folks that might, some of which I bet you some of which have ended up in Huntsville, the jail system. But that was the days of the past. I feel like nowadays there are two very distinct available things that the FBI, potential Huntsville students, right, or Huntsville student potentials, could use to determine if somebody is capable of being a serial killer or capable of being a criminal. And here they are. One, Spotify Wrapped. Fucking okay. Yeah, I would have said Pandora at one point because people were building these stations for years, and that gives an insight to personality. But your Spotify Wrapped or your YouTube recommendations, because there's nothing in this world that tells the true soul, mindset, and insight of a person like those two things. Prove me
I
wrong. I'll wait.
I can't. It's like that meme where it's the person sitting at the fold out table with
A
the
glass of
coffee.
coffee.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those are the two things that could profile a criminal. Prove me wrong. Criminal is not a word, but
But it could be if we push it hard enough, we can make it
if we
happen.
push it hard enough. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think I have learned a lot, and I wouldn't say like my close friends, but like, people I know, people I went to school with. I've learned a lot about them during these years that I haven't talked to them based on their Spotify Wrapped. Because everybody posts it every year, right? Oh, here's my Spotify Wrapped. Like, that's the whole fun of it. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
you look at the
I
progression.
never knew.
You're like, he was super happy, and then he started listening to things that make him capable of skinning a person and leaving their carcass in the
Yeah.
woods. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
wonder if you were that guy. You know what
I
I
just feel
mean?
like the FBI is underutilizing it. Like we've already talked about, they're looking at my Google history, going, "This dude's a fucking idiot." But if they were to look at my YouTube recommendations, they're like, "Man, this dude is really insecure about his drywall work. He loves certain skateboard bearings, and occasionally he wants to rebuild shoes for no reason. And they're going to be like, he's safe. But other people, they're going to be like, oh, why did you Google duct tape? Or why did you YouTube how sticky is duct tape? How to retrieve quarters from a gumball machine, and funny cat videos all in the same day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Starting with the cat videos, now I have real questions.
I just I feel
Yeah.
like the FBI doesn't even need to build their own algorithm. They could just fucking use the one that YouTube has and be like, "Oh, if this is the recommendations they're making for this dude, he's definitely our guy."
Yeah.
It just
It's like when they have like a list of suspects, right? And
yeah.
it always starts with like thousands and thousands of people, and to narrow it down, they just go into YouTube and they're
The
just
other
like, well, these top 100 are definitely solid suspects based on their recommendations.
Yeah, this guy was cleared. Well, what cleared him? We looked at the YouTube recommendations.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
he
he's
was just
off.
looking at drywall. He wasn't doing anything crazy.
So the other thing is too, like from now on, can you imagine in court if they were like, instead of saying like, oh, they failed a polygraph test, they were like, he posted 3 raps just so that he could be 3 different people in a in a 1 month period.
Yeah, he has 3 different Spotify accounts,
Yeah.
so he can choose to share which rap he gets at the end of a year.
That's what makes him a chameleon. That's what makes him acceptable in society. He was just blending in because of the Spotify.
They couldn't decide if he was just a psychopath or if he was bipolar. We didn't know. But
Can
the
you
Spotify
imagine?
Wrapped really helped clear that up.
I only wish that Peter Thomas was still around so that I could hear him 20 years from now just do a spill on Cold Case and just be like, but
Forensic
then
Files.
Forensic Files, excuse me. Oh God.
Yeah,
But
what are you doing, dude?
on Forensic Files, just be like, but then they looked at his Wrapped and then move on, dude. Like
But
he's
then
convicted.
they looked at his recommendations.
It was only then they realized his polygraph was passed, but his homepage on YouTube left much to be desired. And then
Commercial.
convicted. Bro. Yeah,
Commercial.
cut the commercial. And honestly, this is happening on YouTube, and so it immediately cuts to a Lucky 19 Brewing commercial.
Yeah, yeah. If only, like I said last week, I think, if only we could get some
Yeah.
craft beer commercials. It has to be I mean, YouTube, please hear me out if you're listening. Anybody there, you're probably not, but if you are, just loosen up the reins a little bit, man. Just loosen
Dude,
up the reins.
but by 2035, whenever the FBI is using YouTube recommendations and Spotify raps to convict people, the world's gonna let the Bearkat Blonde be part of a YouTube commercial. I'm just saying.
I would hope so. I would like to think that would happen, you know? It would make my YouTube viewing experience a lot better. Not only for the fact that it's something that I care about and it's something I enjoy, right? But hopefully I would see other breweries and other beers. And I'd be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, I want to try that." You know?
it's just it's just so mind blowing. Like we're I know that obviously we're just like kind of being far fetched with this, but you can tell a lot about somebody from these things.
You can. Oh, very much.
Man, hey,
The burps
they're
have
like
hit.
yeah, but they're like they're passive. Like they're not uncomfortable. They're like a healthy. They should happen. It's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They also don't. I know this is going to be really graphic, although obviously no graphics because it's a podcast. But um, let me build some graphics for you based on this description. They also aren't spicy. They don't stink necessarily. They're just like a good, healthy, I feel better burp, but no one around me is probably going to be, inconvenienced, if you
Right.
will.
You're not well, no matter what your burp smells like, you should always try to cover it up from other people. Let's be a little bit courteous. But this is one you wouldn't necessarily feel horrible about somebody being around.
Oh no, like I mean, if I was still in a car with people I knew for sure, but like if I was in a public place, I'm gonna let this go.
Wait, you mean like if I was in the car with people I knew, I would definitely burp in their face.
Oh no. See, I'm a
That
little
just
more considerate when
see,
it
but
comes
you
to
didn't
that.
look at my Spotify rap, so you don't know what kind of person I am.
Yeah, he's a sick-minded MFer.
Hmm. They look at mine and they say, "That guy burps in people's faces on purpose."
Yeah, he's a sick, twisted dude. Anyone that could do that could easily hide a body in 5-gallon buckets of concrete. Easily. It's
Man,
basically the same. It's basically the same mindset. It seems like escalation, but is it really? I don't think so.
he obviously, yeah, if he's burping in other people's faces, he obviously doesn't care about the smell of things. You know?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Again, we all saw Dahmer. Listen, no more recommendations on what to go watch or what to
Yeah.
listen to. Um,
You know,
but
we're talking about the YouTube recommendations, though. You were talking about yours is drywall, though. That could definitely be a sketchy one.
oh, it could be until they were like looking at who I was looking at, and then they're like, no, it's literally just informational, and it's also quirky, awkward informational. It's those guys that are really good at their craft, but they also want to like throw in some funny tidbits where they like drop some mud and they're like, is that oatmeal? Like, just make the stupid little like, what are you doing? Goofing? New boot goofing. And you're just like, why? Show me how to tape this fucking uh juncture or whatever. They would know right away. If that now, there's probably a checklist too. Like if they were to pair Spotify Rap with YouTube recommendations, that's where it happens. You have to have both. You have to paint a full picture.
Right.
I think I'm gonna get away on one side or the other. My Spotify might be shoddy, but they're gonna look at YouTube and be like, "Nah, he's trying to work on wallpaper. He's already in his own hell." You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, putting him in prison does nothing. He's already trying to learn how to do wallpaper. That is fucking hell. That's the equivalent of being in prison. So
That's what they do in the walls unit, actually. They just
listen,
they just hang wallpaper all day.
what it is that they have no cruel and unusual punishment. So they're like, all right, waterboarding's out. All right, hard labor as far as the field because of dehydration, that's out. Hmm. What's next? Anything that involves a paintbrush or anything that involves wallpaper. That's how we're going to make these people regret everything they did in life.
But let's be honest though, wallpaper is by far worse.
Dude,
Painting isn't fun, but it's a little more satisfying to me.
if you were spending life in prison, okay, and every day they were like, you're going to put this wallpaper over, I'm assuming the jail's built out of concrete blocks, all those bumps and shit. They're like, you're gonna put this wallpaper over these bricks, and there can't be a single bubble in here. I literally would probably go kill someone else so that they would speed up me going right to lethal injection. I'm just saying, fucking one more day of removing bubbles out of wallpaper on a cinder block wall. Cash me in, dude. Cash me in.
Yeah, I can't do it. I have never, I'll be honest with you, I've never attempted wallpaper, but I've watched someone hang wallpaper, and it seems like one of the worst experiences on the planet.
I challenge you to do this. Again, I'm not trying to say go out and watch anything else, but I challenge you to do this. Just go to YouTube and look at people that are experts in drywall explain to you how simple it is and watch what they're doing. Because every single one of them is like, look, it's very easy. And then they start smoothing, they smooth, and they're like, oh, hold on, my seams. And then they line their seam back up. And they're like, see, it's just that easy. It's that, oh, got a ripple. Hold on, got a bubble. Oh, shoot. And then it's so easy. But if you just follow this, it's going to be perfect every time. And the whole time I'm like, your shit's still screwed up. Like, your stuff doesn't look great. But you're telling me it's easy. Like, you're rooting me along knowing you're just flat, failing, crashing, and burning.
Yeah. The funny thing is that they still posted it.
Yeah, because that's as good as it gets. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Like they are
Exactly.
still the best there is, and it was still trash.
It sucks, man. It sucks. It doesn't look fun. There was one other thing that I wanted to touch on here because this is based on we talked about it. It's based on the Sam Houston branding, and what college kid doesn't love spring break, right? Which I know this week or next week, depending on where you're at, I think is your spring break. For a lot of people in this area, it's this week, but I had the thought last night. I was laying in bed and I was like, man, I wouldn't have even known it was spring break if your kids weren't home from school. You know what I mean? Like it's at a certain point you get like once you get out of whatever schooling you're in, unless you become like a teacher or something or an administrator in the schooling system, I feel like spring break really becomes an anomaly. Like you forget about it because I do. I always forget. In fact I go from Valentine's Day to Easter basically. Like I just skip right over it.
Real quickly, I forgot Easter. I was like, yeah, Valentine's and Memorial. I feel you. But yeah, Easter's in there. I'm an idiot.
Well, I'm sure a
I
lot of
rem
people go Valentine's Day to Memorial though, and either way.
I remember Mardi Gras and Easter honestly more than I do spring break. And so here's the thing.
See,
You're
and
saying that
I,
you
I agree. I always think of Mardi Gras more than I think, and I've never even been to Mardi Gras. I
wow.
think of Mardi Gras more so because it seems like more of like I don't want to say like an adult thing to do because it's really not. I mean, it is, like adults do it, but I'm saying like it's not like a grown up thing to do, but it's like it's not related to something you do in your younger age, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. In
Well,
spring
I think
break.
what you mean the Mardi Gras?
Yeah. Like
Oh
I
no,
think of
well,
Mardi Gras more than spring break.
because I think it is that we think of it only at, which it still is. It's the let the sin in pre-Lent is really what it is. It's the let the sin in. But we think of it only as like the drinking part of it, which obviously is very heavily rooted in all the um, other activities that are underway during that time. But for kids, it is. It's like a festival season. You know, they have a lot of candy. It's still sinful, I guess, to in a certain regard, but a lot of candy, a lot of events and stuff like that. We're not going to talk about Mardi Gras, but so you said that you only remembered spring break because our kids were out. And so here's the thing, like I completely forgot about spring break until our kids were out. And then I was reminded, even though Katie was off work because of spring break, like I didn't even realize that it was happening until then. So I
Yeah.
get reminded because of that. But for me, the big thing that really says, oh, it's spring break is one, when I'm traveling around town or to and from the airport, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like I'll just be driving and I'm like, holy crap, it's a Tuesday afternoon and there's no one here. And I'm like, oh shit, must be spring break. Or I get to the airport, I don't have a realization. I get to the airport and then I'm like, holy crap, it's like a madhouse in here and it's a Monday. What the hell is going on? Or it's a madhouse in here and it's a Sunday. What the shit? And it's because it's spring break and everybody's trying to get in or out. So
Yeah.
that's the only time I normally know. Traffic patterns and traffic patterns on land, good. Traffic patterns in air, not good. And that's how I know it's spring break.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because obviously people are traveling and stuff. But I have a question. Like, do you think there's anybody that travels during spring break that doesn't have kids or that isn't, you know, a teenager or whatever themselves, like in college themselves? Like, do you think there's like people, whether it be a group of friends or like couples or whatever, that are like ages 25 and up
This is
that
terrible. The
just
first
travel during spring break? Because I think based on what you just said, that would be a horrible experience.
I think there probably are a few. Like the first thing that came to my mind, I was like predators,
Okay.
obviously. They're trying to get to Panama Beach for obvious reasons. They're headed to Destin,
Okay.
duh. But
Well,
outside of that, sorry,
outside of
outside,
people who would end up in a walls unit in Huntsville State
yeah,
Prison.
um, close to Lucky 19, but oh, so far away. No, aside from that, I would say there's probably some young, there's probably some couples that are in their mid 30s, maybe in their 40s that just,
It's
for
just
one
like
reason or another don't have kids.
just still trying to like live the glory days or something, or do you
Well,
think? Because I just feel like it's not like if at least for me, it's not something that I would want to go to. Like I like traveling and stuff, but I wouldn't want to go somewhere when it's packed for spring break.
there's some people like the crowds. By the way, this is like a small
I
percentage. There's
guess.
probably a very sample of this population. Um, The other thing is too, like the deals just get ridiculous, man. They're like, oh, do you want to
Like
stay
flights and
in or
stuff.
Yeah, you want to
Yeah.
stay in Orlando, Florida, in the Ritz-Carlton, get here, stay here for 5 days, and all you have to do is pay for alcohol, which is not included in the package. And they're like, for $13, and you're like, yes. And you get there, and then they're like, Bloody Mary, that'll be $148. And you're like, I'll have 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's some crazy packages and stuff like that to get to certain places. But I would say it's very slim. Most folks, even if they are like kid free and they even like the party lifestyle, right? Whatever, for whatever reason, non, uh, um, you know, non
Creepy.
walls unit
Not
bound
not not
creepers. Yeah.
creepers, yeah.
I would say that they're still probably going elsewhere for spring break. Like, but they might take advantage of. I'm sure that there's places in the upper Midwest that are popular for spring because you can ski for spring break and stuff too. We don't think about that. We think beach and
Right,
cocktails
because we're from the
and
South.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're like, where's the what's the quickest
Well, because we're from the South and
journey?
also because of MTV.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there's that. They painted that picture of like, where can I get a pair of leather sandals and a linen shirt that's only one button done on it? Like how
Yeah.
quickly can I get from work to a single button on a linen shirt with a pair of leather sandals in the equivalent of underwear, for a whole
Yes.
week. Whereas I'm sure people in the, other parts of the world, there might be people in Florida that are like, how can I get some skis on my feet? I don't know, you know.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's people in Texas that do that. In fact, I think I know some people in Texas that are like that.
And I'm sure
Uh,
they have very similar deals. I'm sure they're like, do you want to come to, I don't know what's big, like Aspen, Breckenridge for like super cost effective because they're bringing in, instead of like attracting 100 families, they're attracting 1,000 families, so the price is beneficial.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I've never actually thought about that, that spring break could be a skiing time. But my
Yeah.
point still stands though, is like, now I guess for something like that, for people and they're like, 30s or whatever, that are going like traveling during spring break time, that makes a lot more sense to me in my mind, because that seems like a lot more chill of an experience, pun intended. Uh but like, I don't know, like for me, that scene of like partying on the beach with a bunch of like college kids, just I've never been like, man, that's where I want to be. But I
No,
don't like crowds, so
it's not for me either. I would say in college there was um probably like a very maybe 2 year stretch where I was like, hey, this is where the party's at. We need to be there, right? Even if we're just stacked in there, like this or whatever.
yeah.
I would say very, very short period of time. I would say the rest of my life immediately thereafter, I was like, oh, everybody's going to, we can even use the opposite. Like, everybody's going to Aspen to ski during spring break. Well, I'm going to go to Amarillo, Texas then. Like, wherever the case may be. Okay. I was always
Wherever
like,
people aren't.
yeah, I'm always a big fan of like, hell yeah, I want to go to Orlando, but what's the off season? When am I going to go to a hotel and see five people in the whole
Yes,
lobby the whole week versus 500 every single day? Um,
exactly. That's how
but
I
like I
think.
said, but not everybody's programmed that way. I mean, just look at my YouTube recommendations. So I feel like I feel like for a short period of time in college I was like that, but I never spring break for me. Then we talk about like what tells us it's spring break now. Spring break for me in college, I never, one time I think I went to like Destin or Panama City Beach. I don't really remember, which makes it probably the best experience ever. It was probably phenomenal because I don't remember it. But I only went one time. Otherwise, we worked. Like I worked like that was a good time where I could put in 80 hours of work or 100 hours of work versus the standard 40.
Because you were off of
Um,
school.
Correct, because we were off to school.
Yeah.
So I could just endlessly work, and that would fund more of my in-town shenanigans once school started back up, right? I could be
Right.
set on going out whenever I wanted, work pending, between that and the end of the semester if I just worked hard enough during spring break. So
So that makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like that's
also,
where I'm at.
Yeah, and maybe programming myself that way is what makes me want to go the opposite direction of all spring breakers now. Because the only thing that spring breakers, I liked people that didn't go to spring break because then we were busier in town. Like the people that stayed on campus and in town during spring break because they couldn't afford to go anywhere else would spend their money locally, which meant that I had money in my pocket come after spring break.
Right.
Um, I do want to call out it is the officially licensed beer of the Bearcats, so it does call it out on the can. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. That's cool.
and
That
I
is cool.
the other thing too, because I thought about it, I was like, oh, he probably. This is terrible. Again, if you were to see my Spotify Wrapped and my YouTube recommendations, this would all make sense. But immediately I was like, oh, he probably just leveraged the shit out of being an alumni and having a brewery. And he's like, let me take advantage of the university. But I don't think that's the case because if you look at all the rest of their beers, it's like they have one that honors a firefighter. Like apparently he's
Yeah.
like a
This
local
is
legend.
this is the only one that's really centered around Sam Houston.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm saying I don't think that he built the brand saying, I'm a Bearcat alumni. Let me leverage my connections as being a Bearcat. I think he was like, I want to brew beer. And this is one he came up with. And he was like, hey, this is going to seem weird, but would you guys be interested in putting your brand on this and licensing it for us? And they were like, yes, we would. And he was like, awesome. But by the way, I'm not just a POS that wants you to do that. I have all these other brands too. Look at my Spotify Wrapped and my YouTube recommendations. I'm not a bad guy. That's
I'm
probably
not.
what he said. I can only assume.
He said, "Look, this is what YouTube's recommending me. Trust me." Okay.
He he literally
It's
was
just a
like
bunch of how to be a brewmaster video.
he was like, look, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you three things real quick. One, I'm not a member of the transient populations. I came to school, I stayed here. I'm not in prison. I'm not going anywhere. Boom, check that box. Number two, my Spotify Wrapped and my YouTube recommendations, they're all healthy. Let the FBI comb them. Guess what? I'm a good guy. And third, I don't follow the masses to spring break. I go where no one goes for spring break. I'm a good guy, license my beer. I don't even know who runs their company, but with a sales pitch like that, Sam Houston was like, slap our logo on it. Go Cats.
Eat them up.
Eat 'em up.
Eat them
Yeah,
up.
yeah, Go Cats was the dub. So it's funny that we go from being Wildcats to being Bearcats, both spelled with a K
For whatever
unnecessarily.
reason. Whatever
Yeah.
reason.
I'm
Also,
pretty sure
don't even know what a bearcat is really. I
not a fucking
think I've
clue.
heard of it, but I don't even know if is it a hybrid of a bear and a cat? I don't know. Could be. It
I
could be a
thought
mythical creature for all I know. I don't know.
I thought for the longest time that it was like like a not a derogatory but like a slang term. Like they were just calling this type of animal a bearcat, and we're like, no, that's a I don't know sphinx. That's a
It's a
shitty example, but
raccoon.
a
It's
raccoon.
a raccoon.
Yeah, like a what are they, a trash? You know how they call the raccoon the
Trash.
trash panda.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
a bearcat's like an armadillo with some type of disease or something, but we don't know that.
It's
They just
growing
call it
whiskers or something. You know what I mean?
just a bearcat. There might be a real thing. We could Google that and find out, but I like the mystery of it all, to be honest with you.
Well, let's Google it real quick, but we need to get into the what would you be doing? The WWYBD here.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You go first.
Man, this one's a little bit tough for me because I didn't see like a specific thing I was doing. I just knew that I was outside. Normally I get pretty specific with this, so that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
it's a little weird for me. But I'm definitely outside drinking this beer. I think for me this is like something that I came across at like a local festival or something. Like a little festival outside.
I was literally gonna say I have two scenarios, but that was one of them. Keep going.
Yeah, like some kind of little festival, like Conroe does one every now and then. But they also do like I don't even know what to call it. But I know I've been to like some little small concerts that Conroe has thrown and stuff like back in the day, and this is where I would find that beer and be like, "Oh, I'm interested." I mean, obviously it grabbed my eye because I am a Bearcat, so that's what caught my attention, and that's what would have caught my attention in this scenario. But definitely outside, hanging out, having a good time, throwing some of these back. Very drinkable. So that's what I would be doing.
So my first, whenever, which damn it, I shouldn't have let you go first because we never aligned. We only aligned last week because that one was just so easy. Otherwise, you're off way off in like some other galaxy, and I'm like, yeah, sure, bro, I could see myself doing that. But
Yeah.
with this one immediately, I was like, hey, I walk into a festival, I find a beer truck, or I find like a local poorhouse, and I'm like, hey, give me your generic. I'm not downgrading the beer; it's phenomenal, and in fact, I was actually kind of shocked at the scores, which we'll get into in a minute, but. I find the local pour place. I find the local whatever roach coach for beers, if you will, the poorhouse, and I'm like, "Hey, give me your generic." And they pour this in a cup, and as soon as I taste it, I'm like, "Oh shit!" And so I walk the festival, and I sneak by a couple of times and get a few more as I continue to venture. And then also, I'm telling people along the way, I'm like, "Hey, have y'all been down to the corner where there's that shitty Hallmark trailer with the holes punched in the side of it? The dude's pouring beers out of the back, and this is what it is. Okay,
Yeah.
just go, eat them up, cats."
You know.
So so there's that. The second thing is I do see myself, dude, I was gonna say like little league game, which is inappropriate, but let's say sometimes college tournament ball, right? They'll have like college tournaments or something. This is something I would definitely seek out as soon as I got to like a college softball tournament, or if I got to a college baseball tournament. And I'm only using baseball as an example because that's what I would go to watch. But any small college tournament, as far as sports are concerned, it could be tennis. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit if this was available. Like
Outdoor.
and
Outdoor.
and oh, outdoor for sure. But I do want a little bit of a spring atmosphere. For me, this fits with a little bit of a temperature change. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it dead summer, and I don't want it
Mm-mm.
cold. I want it spring transition into spring, or I want it late summer fall transition. In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, here it's more of like late summer, winter transition. We don't
Yeah,
really get a
whatever.
fall very much, but yeah, I know what you mean. I can get
Um,
behind that. The only reason I wanted to specify outside whenever you said that was because, like, you could be going to a bowling tournament.
I mean, I don't find myself at a bowling tournament. I guess I would have to check the box of indoor. I don't really see myself at indoor events when I talk about college sports, even like basketball. I'm not against it. I've seen some college basketball that I've actually kind of fallen in love with as of late, but not nearly as much as the outdoor college events. Um, to just to clarify, the Bearcat is a real thing. It's also known as the binturong. It's a Bavarian mammal from Southeast Asia. So how some rednecks up in Huntsville that were starting a teachers college decided, "Heh, that's what we're going with." Maybe they were like, we're
You
more educated than other folks.
you know what it
What?
was is they didn't have a mascot yet, and one of them was raiding their garbage at night, and he was
Yeah.
like, "God, them damn Bearcats are just eating all my shit up."
But they were obviously using that as a slang term because I doubt an Eastern Asian animal was raiding their trash in East Texas. Maybe not.
Hey, you
You
don't
know
know,
what?
man. There's a lot of
I think
invasive species.
the climate's probably very similar. It's extremely uncommon, even in its own territory. It basically kind of looks like a trash panda mixed with a sloth and a cat and a bear, really long monkey tail, very coarse hair. Just go check it out. We have so many assignments for you guys. Dazed and
Mhm.
Confused, Mind Hunter. Check out the Binturong, aka the Bear Cat. Eat them up.
Yeah, go do your homework, and while you do that, it's time for us to grade this beer.
Giddy up.
All right. All
You
right.
want me to run through first?
Yeah, you can. You want to switch it
I'm
up?
almost. So yeah, I do need to switch it up because here's the reason. You know me. I put in my scores, then I put in my scores immediately when I taste the beer. I drink the beer, then midway through I reevaluate. Sorry if I tune out for a second, but I reevaluate and then I check them right before we talk again. They didn't change and very high ratings. So entry I had a 5. All right, it's a blonde. It's supposed to be easy drinkable. Boom, had a 5. Aftertaste had a 5, stayed solid. Body I had a 5. It's what a blonde should be. Color had a 5. It almost teeters on a 4 for me because there's a little bit of cloudiness, but it's a craft brew, so I'll let it slide. Bitterness, I have a 5. It's right where it should be. Acidity could have had a little more for me. I didn't want like IBUs to be any higher, but I wanted a little bit more of a bite for the finish. Fizz, like I said, the burps weren't smelly. They weren't distasteful. They weren't inappropriate for those folks that might be sharing my company. They were fruitful enough when necessary, but were not overwhelming. So that brings me to a total score of 34, which makes it, for me, not just because it's hometown, but a phenomenal beer. I really thought, last thing I'll say, it made me think a lot of when the Crawford Bach came out. Remember when the Crawford Bach came out and we were all like, oh, we got to get it because the Astro cans.
Yeah.
And we were like, it's going to be shit beer, but that's fine. Like, it'll just be trash. We'll never drink it. We'll keep a couple of the cans, some of the branding. And then we drank it and we were like, oh, it's really, really good. I kind of thought this was going to be the case. Like, love the can, love the fact that they're supporting the Cats, like, love the fact that the story, the 2.5 miles, the hometown team, all that jazz, it's officially licensed. It's going to be trash. I'm going to drink these 2 cans and never talk about it again. But I will seek it out, even though I know it's going to be hard to come by. And this is where we should make a journey for a trip. Like, if I'm going to deem one that has a tap house that we go to enjoy, this is the one I would like to do.
Okay.
Truthfully.
Wow.
Above all else.
That's good. I mean, I 100% agree with you on the, I was excited because of the branding, didn't expect much, and was very pleased with it. So I'll get into mine. I also had entry at a 5, came in solid. I had aftertaste at a 4, just because it didn't leave much afterwards, but that's not a bad thing. Body, I had it at a 4. I've had a little bit better of a flavor on other ones, but it's still really good. Color, I had a 5 as well. I think you had a 5. I didn't pay much attention. I mean, I looked at your glass whenever you poured it, but we didn't do like a whole pour analysis like we usually do. So
sorry, if my glass wasn't empty, then I would share it with you again. But I guess that's a testament.
You could see it. You could see it on there if you're paying attention to the video. But bitterness, I had it at a 5. I think it's almost. I mean, it's exactly what I expect out of a blonde. It's not bitter at all, which is perfect. The acidity, I did give it a 3. There's a little bit of like a fruitiness in there that I wasn't expecting. It's not bad. It's just not what I expected in a blonde. In like a standard blonde. It was really small. Maybe it's just because I'm drinking it out of the can or out of this metal straw. I don't know, but I got a little bit of it. And fizz, I had it at a 5. I think the burps were great. I mean, I really enjoyed everything about it. Like you said, I'm very pleased. I would seek it out and get it again, and that brought my total score to a 31. So,
so
31
to 34.
Right? Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close.
Nice.
So yeah, I agree. I'd like to go visit them, see what they're all about, hang out, have a couple beers, and try this thing on tap. I bet it gets a little bit better on tap. So.
Yeah, I think it'll probably overcome a little bit of that maybe strawiness that you're chalking it up to, or that initial taste from that first can. But
probably. But all right. This is the time where I'm going to tell you to go follow us on socials, on TikTok and Twitter at Off the Tap Pod, and on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Off the Tap Podcast.
It's not a fictitious animal. It's not a fictitious fizz. It's phenomenal branding. Eat 'em up. Have the lucky 19. Get after it.